President Yoon, who kept his silence during yesterday's questioning, today refused to attend another interrogation session at the Corruption Investigation Office. The president is now staying at a detention center and has called on a local court to review whether his arrest was proper or not. The nation's central bank has decided to keep its key interest rate unchanged at 3%, as it keeps a close eye on the $1 exchange rate and the incoming Trump administration in the U.S. After 15 months of the brutal war in Gaza, which has left some 46,000 people dead, Israel and Hamas have reached a ceasefire deal. It's January 16th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. We start at the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials in Gwacheon, where a second day of questioning was expected to take place. For more, our correspondent Kim Do-yeon joins me live. Do-yeon, a second session of questions was scheduled to open today, but that did not happen.
That's right, Jung-min. Today, as you said, President Yoon was supposed to be brought here at the CIO for more questioning on his charges of insurrection due to his declaration of martial law last month, but he refused. And that means he's still at the Seoul Detention Center at this moment. Now, earlier in the day, the legal team actually called for a delayed start to the questioning to 2 p.m., but soon afterward, they said Yoon has shared everything, so there is no need for more questioning. What seems to be a lack of cooperation from Yoon's end really reflects what he's been saying since the beginning. He's called it illegal, as he says the CIO does not have the investigative authority over insurrection charges. And as he left the presidential residence yesterday morning, he said he only gave in to investigators and was detained to prevent any unfortunate clashes between the investigators and the Presidential Security Service.
And I hear the president's defense team has formally called on a local court to look into the legality of the president's arrest. Any updates?
That's right, Jung-min. Earlier in the day, Yoon's legal team officially called for a review of, as you said, the legality of this arrest, and the Seoul Central District Court is now on the case. And the move really reflects what we've been just talking about, that Yoon's team does not believe the CIO has the authority to investigate this case. And representatives from both Yoon's and the CIO have gone to the court at around 5 p.m. to make their cases for this case. And the court is now obligated to make a decision within 24 hours. And that means the decision will be coming out tomorrow sometime early in the day. And the court, if it rules in favor of President Yoon, will make President Yoon be released, and if it goes against President Yoon, the arrest will continue. The countdown, actually, of 48 hours for Yoon's current detention has been temporarily paused as per the rule for the legality review. The countdown resumes once the CIO's documents that have been sent to the courts for the review are returned. Do keep in mind that the CIO is expected to request another arrest warrant that allows them to detain President Yoon for up to 20 days. And this will probably be done after the court has decided on the ongoing legality review.
Meanwhile, public rallies in support of and in opposition to the president have moved their base from the Hannam-dong residential area. What have you been hearing there, Do-yeon?
Now, Jung-min, I've been here since early in the morning, and there were some protesters even before me here. Now, this support here is in favor of President Yoon, and it peaked during the afternoon. Now it has died down to about 100 people from what I can tell. And some 30 ruling People Power Party lawmakers also joined them here to make their case against the CIO's move. Now, as you said, the protests in front of the residence have largely moved, and those in favor of Yoon's impeachment are gathering at other locations as well. And one of the main ones is going on in front of the Constitutional Court, where the impeachment trial is being held. That's all for now. Back to you, Jung-min.
All right, that was our Kim Do-yeon reporting live at the investigation office. And President Yoon has become the first sitting president to spend the night at a detention center following his arrest on allegations of insurrection. Shin Ha-young reports.
President Yoon was taken to the Seoul Detention Center in Uiwang, Gyeonggi-do Province at 9:50 p.m. on Wednesday, where he spent his first night in a cell to himself. Yoon was taken by car from the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials after 10 hours of questioning. This unprecedented situation with the sitting president being detained has raised questions about security at the prison, but no specific rules are in place. The Presidential Security Service has reportedly discussed security measures with the detention center. However, an official from the Ministry of Justice said discussions about Yoon's security are confidential and cannot be confirmed. The room, about 10 square meters, is reported to have a toilet, television, foldable mattress, and other essentials. There is no bed, but the floor is heated with CCTV monitoring the room. Former Presidents Roh Tae-woo and Park Geun-hye were held at this detention center, and currently former minor opposition party leader Cho Guk, sentenced for academic fraud involving his children, is serving time there. Yoon's breakfast on Thursday morning included cereal, boiled eggs, nuts, and milk. Until a decision is made on another type of arrest warrant seeking a longer period of detention, Yoon will be moving back and forth between the CIO for questioning and the detention center. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
The second impeachment case hearing for President Yoon took place as scheduled today, where the legal teams on each side exchanged heated words. Our Oh Soo-young has the details.
President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial unfolded with intense political overtones as the Constitutional Court proceeded without the leader at the second hearing on Thursday. As a full-fledged debate began, lawyers representing Yoon and the National Assembly presented conflicting narratives about the legality and the context of the martial law decree declared on December 3rd last year. The National Assembly's panel presented 5 grounds for impeachment, declaring there was no basis or conditions that made it necessary for a martial law decree, which can only be triggered by the president in times of national crises such as war or those akin to war. The panel also said Yoon violated the procedure of declaring the decree by not having properly attained and documented cabinet approval. They also claimed Yoon tried to paralyse the functions of Parliament by aiming to prevent a motion to lift martial law, as well as block political activities, gatherings and press freedom. The Assembly side further said Yoon tried to undermine the independence of the National Election Commission and tried to detain judicial figures.
The respondent violated the Constitution, attempting to dismantle the Republic of Korea's constitutional and democratic system in one sweeping act.
Meanwhile, Yoon's lawyers questioned the impeachment process and emphasised the context in which the president felt forced to declare the fateful decree. The lawyers insisted that the president was initiating a peaceful martial law against the opposition-led parliament's series of attacks and impeachment motions against the incumbent government.
I'd like to ask how exactly you as the opposition-led parliament have been protecting the political opposition, which is the administration, with your relentless attacks? You claim protecting the political opposition is fundamental to liberal democracy, and that hit me hard.
Yoon's side also raised suspicions about election fraud and claimed it was the president's duty to try to protect the constitutional order as the National Election Commission refused to accept investigations. They fundamentally argued that martial law should not be subject to judicial review, calling it an act of governance that can be exercised by the president. The team further reiterated their position that the National Assembly panel's move to remove debate over insurrection from the trial undermines its legitimacy, as the Assembly cited insurrection as a major reason for impeachment in their resolution. The second hearing took place without the president, as the leader was arrested and taken in for questioning on Wednesday. Under the Constitutional Court Act, the judicial bench is able to hold trial hearings without the respondent if they are absent for the second time. The court denied Yoon's request to delay Thursday's session, saying that his 48-hour detainment didn't justify rescheduling. However, during the hearing, the bench decided to add 3 full days of trial hearings until February 13th. It originally set 5 afternoon sessions until February 4th, which Yoon's defense objected to. His legal team has argued that the trial is moving along too quickly without sufficient discussion or notification of the proceedings. The team has also objected to the court obtaining investigation records as evidence. To this, the court said Thursday that it does not violate the law, and also announced that 5 senior officials under investigation, including former Defense Minister Kim Yong-yeon and former Intelligence Chief Hong Jang-won, were selected as witnesses, with testimony set for January 23rd and February 4th. The next trial hearing for the president's impeachment will be held Tuesday at 2 p.m. Yoon, Arirang News.
In response to the opposition's push to pass a special investigation bill into President Yoon's martial law declaration, the ruling People Power Party has decided to propose its own version. The main opposition, Democratic Party, will attempt to reach a deal tomorrow morning. Yoon has the latest.
The ruling People Power Party has decided to propose its own version of a bill for a special investigation into President Yoon's short-lived imposition of martial law. Floor leader Kwon Sung-dong told reporters on Thursday that all 108 ruling party lawmakers have agreed to propose the bill, and that is only because the opposition party is pushing one with unconstitutional and toxic clauses. He said the party came to this conclusion despite objecting opinions because the members believe that although not ideal, it is the lesser evil. The PPP's decision comes as the main opposition Democratic Party and other opposition parties have been seeking to pass their second attempt at the bill. The primary focus of the DP's proposal is to uncover whether President Yoon unlawfully instigated an insurrection and violated the Constitution in the process. Following the veto of its initial bill by acting President Choi Sang-mok 2 weeks ago, the DP's revised version includes allegations that Yoon committed insurrection and attempted to purposefully induce foreign aggression. PPP's version removes such allegations. Under the PPP's proposal, the Supreme Court's Chief Justice will recommend 3 special prosecutor candidates, with the president making the final appointment. The ruling party plans to officially propose the bill on Friday, and the floor leaders of both parties will begin negotiating the special investigation bill at 11 a.m. The main opposition party aims to present the agreed bill up for a National Assembly vote at the 2 p.m. plenary session. DP floor leader Park Chan-dae emphasized that if an agreement is not reached by 2 p.m., the session will be suspended to continue negotiations, with the deadline set for midnight Friday. Yoon, Arirang News.
Today, the nation's central bank decided to hold its benchmark interest rate steady as it watches political risks at home and abroad. For more, our economics correspondent Lee Soo-jin joins us in the studio. Soo-jin, what was the reasoning behind today's rate decision?
Sure. So the decision to keep rates steady was announced following the first Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the year. The move keeps the benchmark interest rate unchanged at 3%. It's also worth noting that it comes after 2 consecutive quarter-point cuts in both October and November monetary policy meetings last year. Let's take a listen to what the Bank of Korea governor said regarding the decision.
We decided that it would be appropriate to maintain the current rate while monitoring internal and external conditions, as domestic political circumstances and changes in major countries' economic policies have increased uncertainties in terms of the economic outlook and foreign exchange markets.
There was a lot of speculation in the markets before the decision was announced. A rate cut had been anticipated by some due to concerns about a downturn in the economy due to the ongoing political turmoil, as well as uncertainties related to President-elect Donald Trump's second term. But the Bank of Korea ultimately decided on a freeze due to weaker Korean won against a weak greenback, and minutes from the U.S. Fed's December meeting where officials hinted they would be moving more slowly on interest rate cuts.
And now we're seeing a bottoming of inflation, actually prices ticking up again. What does that mean? The Fed will probably not cut rates anywhere near where the market thought it would just a few months ago.
If the interest rate gap between the two countries widens, it could lead to further currency depreciation. In December, the average $1 exchange rate stood at 1,434.42, a change of nearly 3% from an average of 1,393.38 in November. But according to an expert, the Bank of Korea will not be able to provide more liquidity and supply more US dollars into the market. Here's what he said.
The BOK cannot provide liquidity to stabilize the financial market. Greater liquidity lowers the value of Korean won, and it will eventually push the inflation rate upward and will be another big threat on the Korean economy.
The country's annual consumer inflation rose by 2.3% in 2024, the lowest rate since the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020.
How does this year's economy look like? What does the Bank of Korea say?
So we just saw how inflation last year managed to stay in the 2% range. And in November last year, the Bank of Korea forecasted consumer prices to rise 1.9% this year, before President Yoon Suk-yeol's surprise declaration of martial law in December. The Bank of Governors said today that taking into consideration the political turmoil since then, the central bank has adjusted this year's forecast up 0.15 percentage points to 2.05% if the $1 exchange rate remains in the 1,470 range. And the somber tone was also present in the central bank's estimate that the country's economic growth in the fourth quarter of last year may have been even lower than the 0.2%. This year's economic growth is also expected to be sluggish, according to an expert, as exports are expected to weaken due to the political uncertainties. Let's take a listen.
I'm not confident that exports will be the engine of growth for Korea this year. So the engine of growth for Korea has to come from consumption and investment, and that will not happen unless the demand increases domestically, and that would require lower interest rates.
And how does the rate decision impact the economy? And can we expect rate cuts in the future?
Right, so what stood out the most to me today in the press conference after the decision was announced was the Bank of Korea governor saying that for this particular rate freeze decision, the Monetary Policy Committee placed more importance on tackling external economic conditions, such as the upcoming FOMC's interest rate decision. One expert said the decision to not lower rates this time was actually a wise one.
If the rate was lowered and the United States, as widely expected, doesn't, there would have been capital outflows and the Korean won may have weakened further.
But while external factors had precedence over internal factors this time, the Bank of Korea hinted at possible rate cuts in the future, as the governor said that 6 out of the 7 Monetary Policy Committee members were open to lowering the interest rate within 3 months. This would mean that a rate cut may be carried out as early as its next meeting in February.
All right, thank you for the report today.
Thank you for having me.
The days between January 20th and February 5th have been declared a period of emergency medical response as the government seeks to secure the operation of as many medical facilities and pharmacies as possible amid the longer Lunar New Year holiday and a concerning surge in the number of respiratory infections nationwide. Intentions to this end were shared following talks between health ministry officials and ruling party lawmakers at the National Assembly earlier on this Thursday. The number of suspected flu cases soared to its highest this month since related data collection began in 2016. Aggravating concerns is the reality that many hospitals are operating in the absence of trainee doctors following their mass resignation last year. On the international front, starting this weekend, local time, a truce takes effect in Gaza to temporarily halt the fighting between Israel and Hamas for 6 weeks. The conflict that lasted for more than a year has left a deep scar, during which thousands were killed. Lee Seung-jae has more.
Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire deal that will put a halt to the conflict in Gaza for 6 weeks, beginning on Sunday. Qatar's prime minister announced a ceasefire deal on Wednesday, adding his hope that the pause in fighting will lead to an eventual permanent ceasefire.
Qatar, the Arab Republic of Egypt, and the United States are happy to announce the success of joint mediation efforts in order to reach a deal between the parties in conflict in the Gaza territory, to exchange prisoners and hostages, and a return to a prolonged truce that achieves a permanent ceasefire between the two sides.
As part of the ceasefire deal, the Palestinian militant group is expected to release 33 Israeli hostages initially. In exchange, Israel released 30 Palestinian prisoners for every Israeli hostage and 50 Palestinian prisoners for every one of the 5 female Israeli soldiers being held in Gaza. Within the first 42 days of the deal, females and hostages under 19 years old will be released. They make up the 33 Israeli hostages mentioned in the agreement. Reports say some 1,650 Palestinian prisoners could be released as part of the deal. Pundits say the growing pressure to have Israeli hostages returned home forced Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to agree to the ceasefire deal, while others say the election of Donald Trump was behind it. However, both Trump and U.S. President Joe Biden were quick to take credit. Speaking from the White House on Wednesday, Biden said the deal was reached under the precise contours of a plan he set out in May last year. Biden added that the ceasefire deal was the result of painstaking American diplomacy. On the other hand, Trump took to Truth Social to say that the ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of his historic victory in November. Biden says negotiations will continue beyond the latest temporary ceasefire to phase 2 of the deal that could include a permanent halt to the conflict in Gaza. 이승재, Arirang News.
South Korea has welcomed the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, which comes following 15 months of war. This is according to the Foreign Ministry on Thursday. The ministry said it hopes the agreement can be implemented swiftly so that all hostages can be released and the humanitarian situation in Gaza improves. Seoul hopes discussions on diplomatic solutions for peace and stability in the region will start. The ministry added that South Korea will continue actively participating in the international community's efforts to restore and promote peace in the region as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. Snow fell sporadically mainly on western parts of the country today. With freezing temperatures overnight, snow on the roads could turn icy tomorrow morning. Please pay attention while driving. Cold wave advisories are in place in Gangwon-do province. The temperatures in Daegwallyeong in Gangwon-do province plummeted to minus 13 degrees Celsius today. This freezing cold will continue in these areas. Elsewhere, the temperatures will rise from the afternoon, and there will be no worries about the severe cold until next week. Tomorrow, Seoul, Daegu, and Gyeongju will start off at minus 5 degrees, Busan 0 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 5 degrees in Seoul, Daejeon 6 degrees. Another round of rain or snow is forecast in the central and northern parts of the country on Monday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.